I'm Leigh White, Senior Director of Marketing and Communications with Kindred Healthcare.
And I'm Karen Omansky, a registered dietitian and the Senior Director of Nutrition Services for the Nursing Center Division of Kindred Healthcare.
This episode of the Healthy Start to Home Cooking is our 6th and final module of the series. Today we're going to talk about how to create a full menu. We're going to celebrate the benefits of heart-healthy home cooking, and we're going to talk about how to present your food in a very pleasing manner. Karen, what do we have on the menu for today?
Well, we have a really delicious menu of heart-healthy foods, and we have smoky maple mustard salmon, along with herb baked green beans and brown rice pilaf. And a little bit later, we're going to make a really yummy dessert, fat-free ricotta with fruit and honey.
Wow, that sounds great. I'm hungry already. Can you tell us a little bit how the benefits of these will help us?
Sure. Let's start with the fish. The fish, if you remember back in Module 3, we talked about fish in terms of the American Heart Association recommendation, and that's to consume at least 2 servings, which is about 3.5 ounces of fish each week. Fish is a good source of what they call omega-3 fatty acids, and omega-3 fatty acids have been shown to protect your heart and decrease your risk for heart disease. Also, fish is a good source of lean protein, so it's a good way to get the protein that you need and minimize your fat intake.
Excellent. And you also mentioned green beans as part of our celebration dinner here. What role exactly do vegetables play in a healthy meal?
Well, vegetables are really important, whether they're fresh or frozen. Vegetables add a lot of important nutrients and fiber that protect your heart and are good for heart health. Also, a good dose of both fruits and vegetables, they are important in controlling your blood pressure. There's a lot of vitamins and minerals that are important in controlling blood pressure in those food items, fruits and vegetables. And the American Heart Association recommends that you consume about 4.5 cups of fruits and vegetables each day. So sometimes that gets a little difficult to get all that in. So kind of a couple tips is to always make sure you have at least 1 or 2 fruits and or vegetables with each meal. So you can do things like always make sure you have a side salad in addition to a vegetable on your plate. Or always make sure that your dessert has fruit in it. So those are some easy ways to try to incorporate those fruits and vegetables into your diet.
Those are some good tips. I know it's hard to do that sometimes, to get all those fruits and vegetables in every day. One of the other elements that you mentioned is the brown rice pilaf. Can you tell us a little bit about how to make that?
Sure. Actually, we have the ingredients over here in our recipe. So our ingredients include 1 teaspoon of olive oil, which is called a monounsaturated fat. So that's kind of a good fat to use. We have 4 green onions that we've sliced up. We have 3 cups of cold cooked long grain brown rice. So we've already prepared that ahead of time. And then you just use 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh herbs. They could be dill, parsley, chives, tarragon, thyme, anything that's a fresh herb like that. And today I think we have parsley that we've prepared. So what we're going to do first is just heat the oil in a large non-stick skillet, and you're going to do that over medium heat. All right. And once that heats up, and we'll just assume it is, we'll go ahead and add our green onions to that. And we're going to cook that until softened. And you just kind of, move those around a little bit. And that takes about a minute to do. So it cooks up until they're softened. And while you're doing that, you might want to come over here and fluff. Well, actually, I'll do that for you as you're cooking the onions. You want to fluff the rice up a little bit so it's not clumped or anything. Just fluff it up. Yeah, we can hear those onions sizzling.
I know one of the things that I've heard about whole grain rice is that it is fluffier than the processed white rice. So
yeah, it can be. Yes, exactly.
So it definitely is easier for making a pilaf.
Right. So we're just going to add these 4 cups of rice to the green onions.
Okay.
All right, that looks great. And then you just kind of, stir that up. You got to stir frequently while you're cooking this actually. And it takes about 5 minutes before you get the final product. So we'll just stir that up and let it cook. And once it's done, then you're going to add the seasonings at the end. So sometimes you got to really pay attention to the recipe because you want to make sure you're adding ingredients at the proper time. Otherwise, you don't get the right flavor combination. Right. So.
And I'm assuming you wouldn't want to cook those herbs too much, or they would not turn out very well.
You'd lose the flavor profile. So, all right. Well, that looks great. And obviously, we have the final product over here on our plate that looks really good.
Excellent. And I know one of the things that I've heard also about brown rice is that it's healthier than white rice. Is that true?
Actually, it is true. Brown rice and other whole grains, brown rice is a whole grain, and there's other whole grains like whole grain bread, for example. Those are better than their counterparts or their white forms. Brown rice and other whole grains, they're unrefined grains. So what that means is that has the entire grain. It has what's called the bran, the endosperm, and the germ all included in the grain. Refined grains like white bread, for example, or white rice, those are have part of the grain removed. They have the germ and the endosperm. The germ and the bran removed, and all that's left of the endosperm. And when you remove those two items out of the grain, you also remove a lot of the B vitamins that are important for heart health. So it's important to try to eat whole grains as much as possible, and you really want to pay attention to the label to make sure that first ingredient is whole grain.
And one of the things I know about brown rice as opposed to white is that it does take a little bit longer to prepare, but in the end that pays off because it's much healthier for you.
Definitely is.
Yeah, and with this recipe too, since you're preparing the rice ahead of time, it's something that's easy to throw together too.
Absolutely.
Right before you serve your meals.
Yeah, so as throughout this cooking series, we always try to give you some tips on how to make things quickly. So that's a good suggestion. Just go ahead and make that rice up ahead of time, and then you can make your pilaf on another day if you want.
Excellent. So this meal looks delicious, and I think it's beautifully presented too. Can you tell us a little bit about the importance of that?
Well, we eat with our eyes as well as with our mouth. You know, that visual impression makes us want to eat the meal. So it's important to make sure that you try to make the meal look attractive. And this one was pretty easy to make look attractive because the ingredients and the foods, there's a lot of vibrant colors in those. But you really want to think about that and your visual impression of what the meal is going to look like. In a restaurant, they call that plating or garnishing. And so, for instance, on this particular plate, we did add a garnish of a lemon twist. It's just a slice of a lemon, and you just cut an edge out of it, and then you just twist it. So it's really easy to do. But other things are simple, like just adding a sprig of parsley, for example, or chopped red pepper. Just anything that's going to add some color to the plate.
Excellent. I think those little details definitely make a difference. Now for my favorite part of the meal, I think, as everybody has learned throughout this series, that I really love dessert. So you mentioned that we were going to have a dessert with this meal. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. It's called fat-free ricotta with fruit and honey. So it's real easy to make. You just have a container of fat-free ricotta cheese, and this is about 15 to 16 ounces, what you'll normally find in the supermarket. And then 2 cups of soft fruit. It could be berries, it could be peaches, or cherries, or anything like that. And I have fresh fruit, but you can always use no added sugar frozen fruit, or even canned fruit if you want it as well. And then we also have 2 tablespoons of honey. Now this particular recipe makes 6 servings, so you just divide up the ricotta cheese between the 6 bowls, and that's about 1/4 of a cup is how much that's going to be. So I've already measured that out, so I'm going to put that in the bowl. And then you just top it with the fruit, and again, you're going to divide the 2 cups of fruit between the 6 servings, and that's about 1/3 of a cup of fruit. So we just put that on top, and then we're going to just drizzle it with honey, about 1 teaspoon. And there's our dessert.
Excellent. Well, I normally think about desserts as being some sort of cake or ice cream or pie, but this seems a lot healthier.
It is, actually, because it doesn't have a lot of added sugar, where those cookies, cakes, and pies, they have a lot of extra sugar in them. And this recipe does have honey in it, but it's really just a small amount. Adding sugar, it contributes a lot of extra calories and really 0 nutrients. So you really want to minimize those extra sugars. And extra sugars could come from processed foods, or they could come from preparation. Like just even adding sugar to your coffee or cereal or something, that's an added sugar. So you want to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and you did say that we use honey in this, so is that better than adding sugar?
Well, added sugars or sweeteners can include natural sugars, which are like white sugar, brown sugar, and honey, like we used, but all of them still have calories in them. And then there's also processed sugars like high fructose corn syrup. So they all have calories and 0 nutrients, so a small amount is fine, but natural sugars are probably a little bit better, but you want to always focus on reducing the amount you consume because, again, they don't really provide much nutritional value to your diet.
Okay. And I know we've talked a lot about this before, but I need a constant reminder about the amount of sugar that I should be intaking every day.
Now this is added sugar, and it would be about 100 calories for a woman and 150 calories for a man. So that's about 6 teaspoons for a woman and 9 teaspoons for a man per day. And just to put that in perspective, about a 12-ounce can of soda pop or soft drink, that's about 9 teaspoons of sugar. So that's a man's allotment of sugar for one day. And that's added sugar.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not very much at all.
No.
So I really appreciate those tips, and if I can just keep them in mind and follow them, I'll be in good shape. So this really concludes our 6-session series of A Healthy Start to Home Cooking. But I wanted to get Karen, before we end, to remind us about a few of the things that the Heart Association recommends for our daily nutrition.
Sure. Actually, I made up a couple baskets over here of foods you should focus on and try to increase in your diet, and foods you want to minimize in your diet. So first of all, the American Heart Association recommends that you eat a wide variety of nutritious foods daily. First of all, the fruits and vegetables. You want to try to get at least 4.5 cups of fruits and vegetables per day. So we got some good sources of fruits and vegetables here that are easy to eat and easy to make. Also with the fish, we just talked about that in terms of you want to have at least 2 3.5-ounce servings per week of fish. And then also you want to have fiber-rich whole grains. So for example, the brown rice, that's a fiber-rich whole grain. And even popcorn, that's a fiber-rich whole grain as well. So that's a good source of your whole grain foods. But you also want to make sure with the popcorn, sometimes those can increase in calories because you've added sugar or fat or salt as well. So you really want to pay attention to what you're putting on these other items that may increase their calorie intake. Also, you want to have at least 4 servings per week of nuts, legumes, and seeds. So those are, again, all good sources of B vitamins that help protect your heart. Now this basket over here includes the foods you want to minimize. And the first thing you want to think about is in terms of sodium. And you want to have less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day. And we do have a salt shaker in there, but really in the American diet, most of your sodium doesn't come from table salt. Most of it comes from all these other processed foods. So you really want to try to minimize your intake of those processed foods and just make the food yourself from fresh or frozen real food instead. Also, the sugar-sweetened beverages, we got a couple of those in there. You want to have no more than 450 calories per week for those, and that's about 36 ounces, or that would be 3 per week of these 12-ounce cans. And processed meats, so we have a couple examples of some processed meats in here. You want to minimize those to no more than 2 servings per week. And some people might not think about this. This is chicken nuggets. So people might think, oh, chicken, I should have chicken. And this label all says whole grain. Oh, another good thing. But if you look a little bit more closely, this is a processed food and it's very high in sodium. So you really want to make sure you minimize your intake of that. And then last, your saturated fat intake should be less than 7% of your total energy. So for example, these sausages, these hot dogs, those are all very high in fat. And you really want to minimize those. And cooking at home with the tips that we've talked about throughout this series, they will really help you to minimize the foods from this basket and increase your intake from the foods from this basket. But I do want to just a quick reminder that even simple, very small changes can really make a difference and lead you to a better and healthier life.
Yeah, it's not a change you have to go immediately from this basket to that basket right away. But I guess making the steps would be great.
Exactly.
Well, this is a lot of great information as always, but I'm probably not going to remember it all. So where can I go to get more information?
Well, there is a really great website from the American Heart Association. It's at www.heart.org. And you can find a lot of good nutrition tips as well as healthy heart cooking recipes, and they have some additional videos on there too, some additional cooking videos. So I do recommend that you go check that out, as well as just contact a registered dietitian. And all the Kindred facilities do have a registered dietitian, or you can go to www.eatright.org and you can find a dietitian in your area.
Great. Well, thank you again so much, Karen. And we really hope that you who have been watching have really learned some great new tips and ideas and skills that will help you take some of these heart healthy ideas and bring them into your own kitchen to improve your heart health. Thanks again.